that kind of have these festivities around a peace process that is going nowhere, that take a particularly belligerent line to Hamas, for instance, to the region, that play part of this moderate extremist axis, which doesn't really exist, but it is an Israeli, sometimes American narrative. I think ending all of that is what is causing Jerusalem, the Israeli side, so much concern.
You talk about the ongoing, continuing blockade of Gaza. I mean, any new regime in Egypt that represents greater public will presumably won't stand by and support that blockade. Is that not right?
Exactly. I'm assuming that will be the case. This is a dilemma for Israel because you can do things with Arab autocrats, and this is the basic point, that you can't do with Arab democrats. It's a dilemma for America because if you want to be on the right side of Arab democracy, you can't be on the wrong side of Palestinian freedom. And I think what people may well be talking about in Egypt is when, for instance, the Egyptian-Israeli peace treaty was signed. At that time, there was also another document signed, an annex on regional peace. You know how many settlers there were in the West Bank then? There were 10,000. Today, there are over 300,000 in the West Bank alone. And I think they will say, hey, Israel, you haven't stuck to your side of the bargain on the Palestinian question. And the entire way of managing the Palestinian question, having a peace process that goes nowhere but that helps maintain the occupation, I think all of that is likely to unravel, and that is the big question and the big challenge for an Israel if it's going to continue to be an occupier.
All right, Daniel Levy, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Dan.
Now, with the protests against Mubarak showing no sign of abating, many observers are looking to the United Nations to step in. But at the UN Security Council, the issue is not even up for discussion. Scott Heidler has the story from New York.
The world is watching live as Egypt is being transformed, but there's a deafening silence from the United Nations' powerful Security Council. The violent unrest has still not been discussed by the Security Council, not even during closed-door meetings. Will that change anytime soon? A clear message from the 5 permanent members of the Council. Russia?
Mr. Ambassador, are you going to discuss Egypt at all today in the Council meeting?
France? China? Britain? And a brush-off from the United States. And from the current president of the Security Council.
Excuse me, Mr. Ambassador, are you going to discuss Egypt at all today?
So why is the Security Council avoiding the discussion? The uprising in Egypt is not yet an international matter, meaning no other nation is directly involved, nor are there refugees fleeing Egypt to neighboring countries. The Council's position is it's not their job.
So far, there has not been a request by members of the Council for a briefing on the situation in Egypt. I think that the current view is that this situation is being dealt with at the national level.
In its 66 years of existence, the Security Council has never discussed an ongoing popular uprising. It's a very sensitive topic to certain nations. But some feel the fact that those 15 nations who sit here haven't even discussed what's going on in Egypt indicates that the Council is out of touch with the world.
The Security Council was a body established in very different circumstances, where the main threat to peace and security was of conflict between states. These days we see that the main threat to stability and to human welfare and to human life is conflict within states.
The UN Secretary General, viewed as the world's moral authority, has commented on Egypt, keeping his statements very similar to those of the United States.
It is important at this juncture that it is ensured that an orderly and a peaceful transition should take place. I urge all the parties to engage in such a dialogue and such process without any further delay.
The Secretary General said he plans on meeting with members of the Security Council to discuss Egypt. As for the UN General Assembly, the body representing 192 nations, any resolution taken up by the delegates would be non-binding and mainly symbolic. They too have not acted in regards to Egypt. Many of them are not considered free nations by international standards, so it's unlikely that those countries would take the hypocritical step of voting for a resolution condemning what's happening in Egypt. Scott Heidler, Al Jazeera, the United Nations.
An explosion at a gas terminal in Egypt's northern Sinai Peninsula has been blamed on a gas leak. Earlier, Egyptian state television reported that saboteurs blew up the pipeline. Seen here in flames, it supplies gas that's used to generate 80% of Jordan's electricity needs. Well, the explosion has forced its closure and caused severe disruption to gas supplies into Jordan and Israel. In Tunisia, at least 2 people were killed when police opened fire on an angry crowd outside a police station in the north of the country. State media says protesters turned on police in the town of Clef when an officer allegedly slapped a woman during the demonstration. There are unconfirmed reports 2 more people died on the way to hospital. Another 17 were reported injured. The police chief has since been arrested. Stay with us here at Al Jazeera. Still to come on this half hour, cutting communications, how a company in California may have helped take Egypt offline. And in other news, caught out and now bowled out. The Pakistani cricketers found guilty of playing to lose. More on that. Stay with us.
Hello there. Well, there's yet more wintry weather on the cards for us across the states. If we look at the satellite picture, we can see this area of cloud here moving away, and that's the tail end of that huge storm that gave us all that snow and ice. As this gradually clears away, though, behind it, there will be a little bit of a break for this eastern coast, but elsewhere, more wintry weather working its way down from the north, and that does include for us in Dallas. There could well be more flurries of snow there as we head through Sunday for the Super Bowl then. A little bit further south, and for most of us across the Caribbean, it's fine and dry. Cuba there and Haiti and the Dominican Republic getting away with a settled day. But meanwhile, a little bit further west, there'll just be the occasional shower there as you head down through parts of Nicaragua. Up towards Europe and in the south, it's now looking glorious. The north is very, very different, though. We've got a very brisk wind that's still bringing in lots of clouds and lots of wet weather, too. So the temperatures are getting to double figures, but it's feeling far cooler than that. We're not really seeing much sunshine at all. Plenty more in the way of heavy rain there in the north as we head through the day on Sunday. But further south, that's where the sunshine is. 16 degrees, that's 61 in Fahrenheit for us in Madrid. And it will also be fine across the other side of the Mediterranean in Morocco as well. But further east, more showers there, just working their way across Libya and into Egypt as well.
It is in the details. A look. A connection. The moments that reveal the truth. Award-winning documentaries from critically acclaimed filmmakers. Witness documentaries to open your eyes. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. You're watching Al Jazeera. A reminder of the main stories here and the developments in Egypt. Protesters there are entering their 13th day with the government urging people to go back to work. Banned opposition group, the Muslim Brotherhood, says it's joining talks with the government about ending the crisis. President Mubarak's son, Gamal, and the other leaders of his ruling National Democratic Party have resigned. The new Secretary General, Hossam Badrawi, is reported to have good relations with opposition figures. And the State Department has distanced itself from comments by US envoy Frank Wisner, who's backed Mubarak's plan to stay in power until September. Well, the internet has been a central forum for discussion and dissent in Egypt, but there was a near total blackout when the uprising began nearly 2 weeks ago. And an American advocacy group says it's uncovered a link to a California-based technology company. Rob Reynolds explains.
When Egyptian authorities shut down internet access in an effort to stifle growing anti-government protests, their actions were condemned worldwide, including by U.S. President Barack Obama. But a U.S. company is working with Egypt's state telecommunications agency, selling its sophisticated tools for spying and controlling web users. Naris, located in Sunnyvale, California, provided Telecom Egypt with a monitoring tool called Deep Packet Inspection. Tim Carr heads the media reform organization Free Press.
Deep packet inspection sits on routers around internet networks, and it allows them to sift through, to filter to surveil internet communications.
DPI permits governments to know which of its citizens is posting criticisms or organizing protests through Twitter and Facebook. It can also track cell phone users.
With some cell phone systems, you can actually geolocate the person that is tweeting via their cell phone, for example, and track them down. So it has various dangerous applications.
Naras, which is owned by the aircraft maker and weapons contractor Boeing, refused to return Al Jazeera's calls and emails. So we went to see them in person.
Rob Reynolds, I'm a reporter with Al Jazeera English. I'm here to see if I could speak to executives about your sales of technology to Egypt.